We're still on one mic because I haven't gotten your mic. Mainly because I can't find the attachment. Or I'm lazy. This is the most, like, because of my, I know, but this doesn't move any further over, because as you can see, it's limited by this. It's because I'm going for a very maximalist desk setup now. Oh. This will... No, it doesn't. Made it worse. We're live.
So, good morning. I'm sick. Back.
Wait, you're sick, and you're sitting next to me?
I fever. But I can
Barrier.
just gonna do this hand.
Won't be able to see because the lighting comes from behind us.
No, we won't.
Yeah, it's working for me.
That's the only.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's not catching you though.
Oh,
let me
fuck.
see if I can. Hey, my channel. Give me a second.
Dude.
This. Now try.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. Alright, they can hear you. I'm just going to have to talk softer and back here. Okay, so welcome to Composer Talk. Wednesday, October 17th. This is... Yeah, and the reason why he's sick, and then also it's magnified because I don't have his mic set up yet because... just... For reference, I got an awesome new keyboard, and I've rearranged my entire desk setup to make it to where this thing can fit on my desk and be perfectly usable, which it is currently.
Yep.
I will demonstrate. It's awesome.
It's a nice little keyboard.
It's wonderful, and it has like 3,000 sounds that came with it, so I totally recommend this. But as a result, I'm having to readjust how I have the mics mounted. Like I've got mine set up properly, but to get his set up properly, I've got to like rearrange some power strips and all that. So it just hasn't happened yet because we're doing our Composing Tomorrow concerts here at OU. First night down. Unfortunately, I don't have a live stream of that, but we will have a video archive of it at some point in the near future. We are told. I was told we'd have it last night. That was a lie. Anyways, so. Diving right into things, let me pull the doc back up. A lot of... Not anything that's... I mean, there's a couple big headline things, but nothing well, there is kind of one earth-shattering thing, but we'll get to that. So we'll start kind of soft. Takehisa Kosugi died at 80. Japanese composer, violinist, and sound artist, and an avant-garde musician associated with the Fluxus movement. Same thing with the Fluxus movement, not him. Co-founded the group Ongaku. I've heard of them. The world's first improvisational music ensemble. They are kind of well known. They tended to do a lot more of the near complete free improv, based on my knowledge of them. And again, I haven't researched them in years, but whenever I was kind of doing my initial research for helping out with the improv group, they came across my research, so yeah, that's sad. I'm really sad that he's gone. Anyways, so you don't like him?
No, it's sad. I'm thumbs down because
Oh.
it's sad that the dude died.
Then you should have just done like sad face.
Well,
Like,
people know what.
well, you could. I hope that doesn't do anything bad. Okay, and so my cat is trying to say hi. Okay, we're gonna try our best to keep a straight face. God, my cats are so stupid. Anyways, Unsuk wins the Marie-Josee Kravis Prize for New Music, which is $200,000 and a commission awarded by the New York Phil. Yeah, that's fantastic. You can find more information about this on the New York Times article but some quick little tidbits about it. Let's see here. Here we go. She's been a recent favorite over the past few years with the New York Phil. She actually had her premiere of Gogolon, scenes from a street theater there, at least the United States premiere. And then, no, Smokey, you can't come through there. That'll be bad. In 2013, and then opened the 2014-2015 season with her ethereal clarinet concerto and programmed her Fantasy Magnifique at the 2016 New York Phil Biennial. So she's kind of been becoming a familiar face with the New York Phil. If the camera shifts or something like that, it's because there's a very curious cat back there. I should probably do something to block off that area. Anyways, on Thursday, for some reason, a lot of the news happens on Wednesday evenings and Thursdays that we cover. Like, we need to change our day or something. Anyways, but so on Thursday, the orchestra announced that they gave her this prize and the $200,000 commission, and she is excited to be collaborating with them. Obviously, who wouldn't be? And apparently with the orchestra, this is actually interesting, she immediately felt at home both musically and personally, feeling such close connection and intriguing sense of adventure with these wonderful musicians. You can read more details about the commission, about her, about kind of the background on the New York Times article. I would encourage you to look up this composer. The composer has come up once or twice in my personal research. I'm not intimately familiar with her, though. Were you intimately familiar with her?
No.
Had you come across her name like I had previously?
Probably.
Okay. Just you weren't in the must retain all information stage that I was for generals.
Well, yeah.
Because that's actually how I know her. She was on my list of, this is a human that's composed more. Because basically, just quick backstory, I was pretty much told if a composer wrote more than one piece of music that mankind remembers, they're fair game for my generals.
Friedrich Nietzsche. Talk about the music of Friedrich Nietzsche.
Honestly, Dr. Lee might have asked that.
He would.
But you also know how Dr. Lee is, and as long as you can tell him something about the person, he's happy. Alright, anyways, so the Fromm Music Foundation at Harvard awards its 2018 commissions. You're still editing this document, by the way. 14 composers were awarded $12,000 commissions. Now, is that 12,000 total or 12,000 each?
I think it's 12,000 each.
Okay.
I'm not gonna read all their names because there's 14 of them, but
I can read 14 if you want.
Well, fine. Read.
All right. So Oscar Bedison, Richard Festinger, Darius Jones. Ooh, I'm familiar with his work. Chinchun Shison Lee, Eleni Lilios. I'm familiar with Lilios. Eric Nathan. He has two first names. Eugene O'Brien, Yoshihaki Onishi, Igor Santos. Ooh, that'll be interesting. Brazilian-American composer. Interesting composer.
I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Igor. We're not.
It
we're
is?
not.
Igor,
this isn't
Igor?
Young Frankenstein, man. It's
man.
Igor.
Sorry, that movie ruined me. Carl Schimmel, another good one. Bright Shing, Sheila Silver, Andrew Wagoner. Ooh, that's gonna be an interesting one. Wonder why is it even whatever. Nina C. Young. Okay, so off the top of my head, about half of these are pretty recognizable. I'm really excited to see Darius Jones on there. That is one that I'm really looking forward to.
Go up.
What?
This is something really funny. So, Richard Festinger's commission. Well, this is a previous one actually. He won in 1995 and wrote a piece called After Blue. When I was in high school, I was in a band called After Blue. I thought that was funny.
Of course you were. You are the definition of high school tool sometimes.
High school tool. I was in a band. How is that tooly?
That
Lots
is very
of people are in a band at high school.
Yeah, the cat really messed up the camera. It was
Lots of
basically
people are in a
like
band.
center framing on you.
Anyway, so
The cat's off the desk now, so all interference
more
should be
cat.
gone. I'm sad. He was cute.
he is a cute kitty.
All right. So we'll save that for last because that's probably the biggest thing. SCI concludes its first jazz composition contest with the winner of Justin Morel for his piece Terraforming.
It's a great name for a jazz.
Yeah. Honorable mention to Remy Lebeuf for Secondhand Smile.
Also a great name for a jazz tune.
Yeah, it is. And this is really cool because I've had a personal hand in this because it was the SCI Student Council. We came together and we were just like, we need alternative competitions. We can't just have, this is a generic new music competition, write something for a contemporary ensemble. Because there's the things that we brought up, unfortunately jazz is the only one that came through, but we came up with, we need to have an SCI jazz contest, an SCI choir contest, and an SCI experimental contest. Unfortunately, choral and experimental did not come through, but at least the jazz one did.
An experimental one would be particularly nice, because, I mean, I just feel like, I mean, choral can be seen as just included in write a piece for the SCI.
Well, it is, but our reasoning was, I was initially against it too, but the reasoning that was presented, I ended up siding with at the end of our discussions was, hey, choral composition, it really is treated differently than instrumental composition, and it sort of needs to be treated in such a manner. And it's not because...
Shouldn't be.
Well, it isn't, but it's just, it is so much, and it's such a systemic thing that you can't really fight it anymore. There's no good way to fight it.
It's kind of like when after the Pulitzer Prize winner was announced last year, and people started talking about how we needed different Pulitzer Prizes for popular music and classical music and such like that. Well, the problem with doing that is that you're trying to be more inclusive, but what you end up saying, if only subconsciously, is that well, you know, these forms of music can't really compete in the same level as these other forms, so we have to shuffle them off into their own category. I feel that having a separate choral category could do that. Now,
that thing with the Pulitzer, that was way different. There were far greater issues with that, so we won't get into that again.
But I mean, I'm not gonna argue about the Pulitzer with you. I'm just giving that as an example of category winners when it's like it's the popular films Oscar, for example, that got shot down after it was announced because people didn't want the Oscars to just be like, well, big blockbusters can't really compete with the middlebrow indie films we like to award, so we're gonna give it its own category, which is trying to be inclusive, but what it's really saying is...
No, honestly, that's a different issue. That issue is legitimately, they're just mad that the better movies are sometimes the big blockbusters. I mean, yeah, sometimes the big blockbusters aren't very artsy. Like, for instance, the Transformers movies, I think a lot of people would be upset if one of those won an Oscar, but those are very big blockbuster films. But if something like, the next Star Wars movie, or something like one of the Harry Potter movies, like one of these big blockbuster franchise films, or one of the Marvel movies, which won an Oscar, I don't think people will be terribly upset, because it's like, that was well earned. These are really good movies.
Yeah, I think if something like The Last Jedi from last year, or Infinity War from this year were to win an Oscar, to me, I think that would be a well-earned award. Not that the
I'm still rooting for Gamora's death scene, man.
Not that the movies that nominated it and won this past year. I mean, the winner, the movie that won the Oscars was The Shape of Water, and I saw that movie and it was fantastic. I'm not saying it didn't deserve to win, but I felt like The Last Jedi deserved a nomination. I felt like Civil War deserved a nomination in 2016.
Oh yeah. But seriously, like, I will be so upset if there isn't even a nomination from Infinity War for the Thanos Gamora scene, or something that other people have mentioned is just Iron Man's last stand against Thanos.
I mean, or for me, just, I guess from a visual aspect, probably not just because of the complaints people had about the CGI, but to me, the Battle of Wakanda is just such an iconic scene. Personally,
it is, but there isn't an Oscar for most iconic scene or for most epic scene.
Yeah,
there isn't. There should be. But anyways, moving on. We're definitely off topic now. But in general, it's good that they're starting to branch out. I wish they branch out a little more. But for now, I will accept the jazz thing, and honestly, I'm happy about that. I really am, because jazz composers have kind of been shafted a lot, because jazz is kind of seen, it's kind of getting shuffled into the mostly academic category of music, which I think is a crime, because it's really not a high academic form of music.
It's like rock music, but better.
Right, yeah. Well, and honestly, there's a danger that classic rock is going to be academicized at some point, too.
Yeah.
Because it's no longer done in the popular stream. In fact, here at OU, they're working on a course structure, a 2-course structure for the history of rock and roll, because classic rock, as you know, people my age and younger, or sorry, my age and older will know for the most part, and some younger ones, is pretty much gone now. Like traditional rock and roll, like it's just gone.
It's that's a myth, actually.
It is, but you know there's an argument for it.
I think that in the mainstream pop music world, hip hop has really in the last 10 years become the dominant
dubstep,
form. And hip hop has become the dominant form, and then which has made its way into the general pop music scene, and then EDM has had its influence. But if you're willing to look beyond just the surface level of what you hear on pop radio, rock music, just I don't want to say, just like
you could say the same about jazz music. Jazz music is still performed at a lot of events. It's still performed at a lot of parties.
And I don't think rock is dying. I don't think jazz is dying. I don't think rock.
No, but its general popularity has declined.
Its popularity has declined. But with rock, I don't think it's quite the same situation as jazz is, because rock music is still very much, I think, in its own niche, treated kind of as more of a quote unquote folk music form. In that if you jazz is not exclusively, but has been shuffled a lot into the academy. Whereas while universities are starting to offer more rock classes and stuff like this, if you look at the stuff that's happening in rock music now, and the innovation that's happening, it's happening among basically a small-ish community of dedicated fans and musicians who have this following and who play shows for just a smaller audience. And a lot of the cool stuff in rock music, I mean, there's a lot of great bands that write rock and roll that really do perform in more of a folk tradition, because they perform for $20 at, your seedy, dark concert venue for basically a group of friends and close associates.
And that happens.
And that's bad in that they're not reaching a wider audience, but it's not all bad. I mean, just because music is performed for a smaller audience doesn't mean that it doesn't have value. A lot of classical music was
famously for a small audience. There was a series of contemporary string quartets that were premiered in the Juilliard, or at the time the Juilliard School of Music's conference room, because there was not a place for it in the concert venues yet.
Right.
And that's honestly, I think, probably the most telling example of that. Now, I'm not saying that all these garage bands are the same level as, like, Copeland and all of them whenever they're premiering pieces in conference rooms.
Some of them might be.
Might, being a very
There's some
generous
good rock bands out there.
You say that, but you're also biased.
But even looking back, even looking back further, someone like Schubert, who many of his pieces were just premiered for a small group of associates, or I mean Haydn eventually gained much wider popularity, but most of his music
the first half of his music was
but most of his music was just
private.
written for his patron, and they played it once and then it was done. So it's not necessarily horrible that music doesn't just gets played for a few people, but it would be nice, if it could be.
Well, either way. So I think this is a good thing overall. I think this shows that SCI is branching out like they've said they're going to. And again, I'm personally proud because I was kind of part of this, at least part of the idea of it. So I'm really happy about that. And congratulations to Justin Morrill and to Remy LeBeouf.
Yep.
All right. And then next, a Warner Music executive, quote, "The business of physical music is quite strong. We have no intention of walking away from this business." That is... It's good news and or stubborn news, depending on your cynicism levels today. So this was actually last week, but for some reason it was not my radar last week. Not entirely certain why, but that is the wrong thing. This is the right thing. Okay, so what does this, what's the basis for this? One thing, vinyl records are growing fast, and CDs are not tanking as badly as we think. Okay, so two things there. So these aren't taking as bad. That's probably because of idiots like me that I like owning physical copies of things I really care about. Even when it comes to DVDs and video games. And two, the other thing there, vinyl records growing fast. That's one thing that I understand it, but only to a point. And here's why. The big pull for vinyl is it's the best fidelity, it has a certain warmth to it, etc. Okay, I can understand that argument 5 years ago. Now, our digital music formats, particularly WAV and even MP4 to an extent, the audio-video universal format, they are pretty well at a point where you could have a high-quality WAV file played next to a vinyl, and 99.9% of humans will not be able to tell the difference. Like, I've tested people before, just for funsies.
Here's the thing about vinyl. It is definitely not the best fidelity, because...
No, I'm saying that used to be the claim.
Right, but in theory, even, I mean, vinyl, when you listen to a vinyl record, the fidelity decreases as you get farther into the record.
It also decreases on each listen.
Yeah, and they're not as durable. So that's, if anybody tells you vinyl has better quality than digital media, they're wrong. The argument for vinyl,
as of 5 years ago, they're wrong, because now digital's taken over.
The argument for vinyl, and this is a completely subjective argument, and it has merit in the fact that it's just a matter of personal preference, is that it does sound different. It has its own warm sound. It has its own idiosyncrasies. If you're listening to music on a record player, there are little transients and noise that a lot of people actually think adds to the experience. Again, just a matter of subjectivity and personal preference.
I think someone coughing in the audience adds to the experience of your string quartet.
Yeah. To me, I enjoy listening to vinyl. I enjoy it kind of as its own experience. I have some records lying around, but from an audio fidelity standpoint, yeah, WAV files are better. But from just the subjective,
but that's the thing, people don't know that. People genuinely think that WAV files aren't, and it's because they're used to the MP3 format, which the MP3 format is great. Mm-hmm. You can take an entire symphony, which would take like half a gig, or okay, not half a gig, like a quarter of a gig, and you could fit it into like 2 megabytes. Right. Mm-hmm. That is insane. That is great technology, but it does compress it.
Yeah.
The highs aren't quite as high, the lows aren't quite as low. You miss a few in-betweens that were there, but you get Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Yeah. You get Mahler 9. You get all these things that are just... And for just casual listening. Yeah, for casual listening, it's great. Yeah. Now, if you're doing a fully analytical listening for, like, a presentation you're doing, go to the WAV file. Yeah. You'll have a better time. Or go get a CD from your library. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, in general, I think it's stupid that vinyl records are growing. I don't think it's stupid. Well, yeah, but you're one of the people... You're one of the unfortunate minority. That's a dumb thing to say, Zach. Vinyl, like I said, vinyl has its own appeal. It has its own sound to it. And if people like that sound, and they like the way vinyl sounds, and they like collecting the records, because part of it is just the physicality of the record too, then that's fine. It doesn't hurt you. But what I'm saying... Okay, then let me rephrase. Mm-hmm. You are part of the unfortunate minority, however... You're one of the ones that's actually using a legitimate argument. Because unfortunately, you know what most of the people who have the vinyls have them for. Because they're hipsters, and they think it's cool. I know, because several of my colleagues here, several of my colleagues from undergrad, did the vinyl thing, and are doing the vinyl thing, because, quote, it's hip. Well, what's the matter with having something because it's cool? I mean, you have all the things that you collect. Why? Because they're cool. Because you like having them. If somebody thinks vinyl records are cool and wants to collect them because he thinks they're neat, well, no, then there's nothing wrong with that. No, that's one thing. But it's another thing when these same humans claim that the vinyl has higher fidelity. Well, yeah.
if they're claiming
And that's
that,
the problem.
If they're claiming that the vinyl has higher fidelity than the wave file, they're wrong.
It'd be like me starting a collection of rock albums and saying, I love rock and roll. This is the best rock and roll CD, but it's one that's universally panned by everybody, and it's actually terrible music, like objectively terrible. But I think it's good just because I'm completely ill-informed. It'd be like that. That's kind of the point of view that I'm taking here.
Some people think vinyl has legitimately the best audio quality, and they're wrong. But some people collect them just because they like them.
Well, and that part is fine. I can respect that.
I think you're making a lot of assumptions about vinyl collectors based on a few negative experiences you've had with people.
Well, I'm just... Because, like, overall, I'll tell you, I know... I'm trying to think. Here at OU, I know about a dozen people that do the vinyl thing. Of them, about 3 do it because they just enjoy the warmth and or they think it's cool, such as Jacob here. 6 or 7 of them do it because they're very ill-informed. One of them is a graduate student, thinking that it is a higher fidelity and that, quote, nothing matches the fidelity. And a couple of them do it because they've been collectors and they have a large collection at home.
Right.
So that first one, the last one, I can totally understand that. I 100% do. Like, for me, for instance, I'm big into video games. If I see a rare PlayStation title, even though I don't like PlayStation, I'll still collect it because I collect video game stuff. But it would be different. I don't know. I see it as 2 separate reasons to do something.
I mean, I think most people have more than one reason. And yes, if anybody who's out there listening, vinyl doesn't have the highest fidelity. Wave does. Science. Ooh. But
go look it up.
But if there's some dude who legitimately thinks that vinyl has a higher fidelity than any other medium, and he collects vinyl, just loves how they sound, worse things can happen. That person isn't hurting me.
What if that person is hurting a school of music by forcing them to keep around a couple of record players that are expensive to maintain, and they break once a year, and we have to get $200 parts to fix them?
I mean,
that's stupid.
For one, I actually think it's a good thing for a school of music to have a record player lying around, because like
it should be hanging around in the library.
Has its own thing.
We don't need to have it in every classroom.
But I'm not saying that somebody who thinks that their opinion should rule the day when considering university policy. But again, the vast majority of vinyl collectors are not affecting university policy. So I'm not not. So I'm not going to sit here and rag on them.
Much to their dismay. Okay, so the other parts of this I want to touch on. Here we go. During a panel focused on vinyl record standards and quality, a moderator for the Actor Furnace Record Pressing asked Fields about the Warner Music Group's position on physical, and here's how it went down. This is the really interesting part I enjoyed. Okay, that's what he asked. Okay, so here's the response. So I'm saying all of this because it's coming out of my mouth. If I'm not here next year, then I can't stand by anything I'm saying, just to be clear. We are having a great time making records. It's a huge business for us around the globe. It's not a little bit of money anymore, and we intend to be in this business long term. We think that as this market continues to be challenging, it just means it's opening and going in new places. That's key right there. That we want to put records. So not just Vinyl Me. Please and Reverb LP that were in here before talking about their models. Not just the strength that's happening in the .com space, and I'm not speaking about Amazon specifically, but all other levels of .com. Basically, what all that can be summarized as is, I think if you asked Warner a decade ago, hey, you ever think you're gonna get back into vinyl? They would have laughed at you. They would have completely laughed.
Probably.
But in the last 4 or 5 years, I'd say, maybe 7. I would make an argument for 7. For the past 7 years or so, there's been this like resurgence of vinyl, whether it's, you know, the genuine collectors, people that like the sound, people that are, you know, just hipsters. There is now a market for it. So if you are one of those collectors, take advantage of this, because for the first time in decades, LP costs are down. because they're not rare anymore. The only ones that are rare are kind of original LPs, and even those are kind of getting watered down to the point where people don't know the difference. So it's, I mean, honestly, just get your LPs now, because honestly, I can't see this lasting more than another 5 or 6 years before it starts bucking again. So my advice to you, Jacob, to anybody that does the LP, just knowing how in and out all this kind of stuff is, and looking at the language here, you've only got a few good years left. Take advantage of it. Like, spend some money, get your LPs, because in about 5-6 years, you're not going to be as able to access them.
And we don't know. I mean, trends are funny things, and vinyl could make a longer comeback, but I mean, we don't know. It's like, and obviously, I mean, more advances are being made in physical copy storage as well as digital media. So, you know, we have a new kind of CD, you know, in 10 years that is like the new great. I think we were talking about crystal-based CDs a while ago and their fidelity. So, yeah,
well, nothing can match them.
Zach's right. If you do like vinyl, you don't know how long it's gonna last, so yeah, take advantage.
And just based on tech trends, I'm making a very good estimate, 5 years max. Unless
you just like torturing yourself.
Oh yeah, unless you like torturing yourself, in which case,
like,
wait.
In which, I mean, there's something to be said, you know, that the difficulty of collecting things when there aren't many of them to be found. That can be fun.
That can be.
Enough of this. On to
let's
Max.
Move on. So
Max 8.
I've now officially spent about 3 weeks with Max 8 now, and I want to give kind of a final opinion on it, as I promised a few weeks ago, because obviously a few weeks ago it was new, it was hip, it was all that stuff. So my final opinions on Max 8 are this, as concise as I can make it. I think it is probably, I think it's a bigger update than Max 5 to Max 6 was. I think it's way bigger. And it's not just a bunch of tweaks like it was from 6 to 7 and just a few added objects, some UI improvements. This is a legitimately big update. I'm really happy that they delayed it because the multi-channel function is a godsend. The ability just to drag an object straight into an existing line without having to plug and play and all that stuff, that cuts hours out of your week sometimes. And I mean hours. That's hours that you can then go and watch, you know, your favorite TV show, or, you know, do something else more productive, or, you know, sleep in some cases. Eat. Whatever you want to do. I mean, this update is such a time saver. I think if you're just a casual Max user that you just open it once in a while to kind of mess around, make a generative patch, and listen to what comes out, you would gain a lot from Max 8. But the true benefit is for anyone that does long-term projects and works in Max on a weekly basis. That's where it really starts to shine. That, and if you are in a situation where you have a performing ensemble that uses Max as a performance instrument, really, then I would encourage you to do it because of the easy MIDI functionality, which I'm making use of in a personal piece of mind for my recital. I think this is a very important update to get. So again, I think it's overall very good. Just, I would really prioritize it if you are a heavy Max user. If you're a heavy Max user, this is a must download. So that's my final opinion on it. Overall, 9.5 out of 10. The only reason why I knock off a little bit is that I'm ticked that they delayed it so long. But again, I can understand it because that's why we got the multi-channel function. So, and for those who don't know by what I mean by the multi-channel function, it's basically you can have like 120 instances of an oscillator running at once through one tiny cord and just a couple of different objects by just adding MC dot in front of the names. Really awesome tool. So, anyways, moving on. Sounds really cool, by the way. So, probably the biggest news of the week out of all this, despite all this being pretty important, the Music Modernization Act on Thursday morning was signed into law by President Trump.
Yep.
This is, for better or for worse, well, no matter what you think of it, the face of music just changed, possibly forever. We've talked about it a lot on here. Do you have any just initial thoughts now that we're in an MMA world?
No, we've already said everything we're gonna say. I mean, like I said, we've talked about how this is probably a good thing. As Cap has been behind it the whole time, it's probably gonna help musicians get paid easier. So
there'll be short-term pains but long-term gains, is the way I've put it.
So yeah, it's law now. So unless we have the blue wave in the midterms, the Democrats come and change it, which they probably won't because this was a heavily bipartisan law, then it's a thing. So
pretty split bipartisan too. It wasn't even like nearly 100% on either side. It was like a little over 55-60% on both sides. So like it would require just flush out the entire
which
thing.
Just goes to show, just as a side note, that the issues that they tell you about on the news, where they try to polarize us by being like, it's right versus left, rah, aren't the whole story.
We bring everyone together. Not
saying those issues aren't important. I asked you to send hate mail, but send hate mail about something else this week, not about that. And that's silly. I'm not saying those issues aren't important, but there's more to the story.
There is.
The two-party system is a...
We're not going to get into that.
Oh, and that's not a lie. Words. I'm sick.
Yeah, we're not going to get into that.
Two-party system is bad.
We're not going to get into that, yeah.
But anyway, yep, this is a thing now.
That's the thing. Now, the one thing I will say is, even if you're not based in the United States, this will affect you. Because it's no secret that the United States basically controls the internet.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's a reason why everyone looks at us.
Unless you live in China, and they're just like, nope.
Nope. I mean, well, even they rely on our stuff.
Well, yeah, they do.
I mean, and it's not because like we actually own the internet. It's just because we have all the largest internet companies, and most of the servers that the world uses are on our soil.
Yep.
Like that in Sweden is becoming large, and then if you're doing illegal stuff, Russia.
Yeah.
But anyways, so moving on from the news.
I need to get up really quick. You want to talk about Halpern? Because
yeah, I can talk about that.
Just give me a second. Oh, crap! Well, I'm gonna be up for a little longer because I gotta
clean up a very large mess.
Yep.
You suck. Anyways, so we have a premiere coming up not this week but next week from Martin Halpern, The Death of Oedipus. This is a chamber opera being given a fully staged production at the Loft Theater in the Davenport Theater Complex in downtown Manhattan that is, of course, Manhattan, New York, on October 25th, 26th, and 27th at 8 p.m. This is, pretty cool. It's based on one of the Oedipus stories. I don't remember which one.
Based on the last Sophocles play. I believe it's just called The Death of Oedipus.
Death of Oedipus. That's right. Yes. So it's based on Death of Oedipus, and yeah, I think it's kind of cool that we've actually got a fully staged production as a premiere, because a lot of times these days, chamber operas in particular are given like half-staged productions, and by half-staged, I don't mean just half a stage. For those who don't know, it's literally just like it's just a stage, and then you have like the actors doing like loose interactions, but no like set pieces, no furniture, no things like that. None of it touched the chords, did it?
No.
Good.
No, I made sure to keep everything out of the way.
Good. Okay. So yeah, that's, again, I think, and again, the main reason I include that is because it's really cool that something is being given fully staged first time. Because, a lot of times people get shafted, but this one obviously isn't. So if you're in New York, in the Manhattan area, check that out on October 25th, 26th, and 27th at 8 p.m. Hopefully it's a good piece. I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. Watch the first, like one of these not go as well. Anyways, so the New York Phil is premieres Louis Anderson's Agamemnon, commissioned as part of last year's Marie-Josee Kravis Prize. And then we also have the Brooklyn Academy of Music premiere of Place. Music by Ted Hearn, libretto by Hearn and Saul Williams. It is work for 6 singers, 18 instrumentalists, exploring the effects of gentrification. Incorporates R&B, gospel elements, and electronics, which I could go for that. Some gospel and electronics. I think that could be cool. So yeah, let's look up a couple details of this because I did not put this in the doc. Jacob did. Let's see if we can find some more details about this. Here we go. Okay. While his works have frequently dealt with politics, let's see here. As in The Source on Chelsea Manning and WikiLeaks, and Sound from the Bench, a Pulitzer Prize finalist this year, about the Supreme Court. It wasn't, as I say, a good look for a straight white man to take on this material, at least not alone. Was that worth getting up?
I gotta...
With the Chelsea Manning thing, Mr. Hearn said, I never had the question, what business do you have talking about this? So basically, this is going to be another pseudo-political thing. It'll be, I don't know. I think it could be interesting. While I don't think political pieces last a long time, I think it's important that we do political pieces. So that's, I think that'll be interesting.
Oh, we're getting into political pieces again. Oh, we
touched on that. Yeah, I was just mentioning how I think it looks cool. It's, I mean, but again, I maintain my opinion of, I think it's important that we do political things, just they don't last forever.
Well, and it depends on the piece. I think a really good piece of music that has a political theme will be remembered just for the sake of its fantastic music. Ted Hearn was actually one of the Pulitzer finalists last year.
Already mentioned that.
You did? Okay.
I got through that entire bit.
And he's known for writing pieces with some political elements. But yeah, so next up, another piece with a not really a political but some social significance is the North Carolina Symphony's performance of William Brittell's Si Otsadoha, which in Cherokee means "we're still here." This is a piece that explores aspects of Cherokee identity and will be performed by the North Carolina Symphony with a group called the Cherokee Chamber Singers tomorrow and Friday in I think Western North Carolina. They're going to be performing it at some important education sites about Native American history. I believe they're performing it at a site on one of the reservations over there. And the text for this piece, it was taken in part by statements of identity written by the students who formed this group called the Cherokee Chamber Singers. So they wrote these statements in the Cherokee language, which is only spoken. The article I believe it was at the New Music Box claimed only spoken by 300 people in the United States today. So they're giving these statements in this language and making it part of this piece, and taking ownership of the piece themselves, which I think is a really cool thing. So if you're in North Carolina and you have the chance to see this tomorrow or Friday, there's on the North Carolina Symphony's website, there's dates and times, and also an article at New Music Box up about it. And finally, a new album, Music from Seamus, Volume 24. This is a compilation album from New Focus Recordings. They've put out, 24 of these, featuring compositions by composers associated with the Society for Electroacoustic Music in the United States, SAMUS or Seamus, however you pronounce it. And this one features works by Scott L. Miller, Ted Coffey, Nina C. Young, who we've already mentioned today, Ju Won Park, Chin Ting Chan, John Nichols III, and Per Blowland.
It's sad that I'm getting to the point that I recognize and or have actually met all the people that Seamus keeps using.
Mm-hmm.
I feel old.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's.
No, I don't recognize all the famous people. I'm just dipping my toes in the waters of the
You'll get
great
there.
world of electroacoustic composition.
You'll get there. It's a wonderful world. You do weird things like record your friends having drinks. What are you having a stroke?
Synthesizer, you know?
Oh. I mean, I can do that.
Oh, we got one right here. That's a synthesizer, all right.
It's a Moog synthesizer. Listen to that. That's great. I'm half convinced there's a Moog in the other room. Anyways, but so that's available from New Focus Recordings. I know we'll be getting a copy of it here soon because I believe OU just has a permanent buy-in contract with them, which is good. So we'll be able to listen to that soon. Yeah, so that'll be good. And then a quick little bit. We talked earlier about a need for an experimental music kind of contest or whatever. So this week, there was a post in one of the Facebook music groups about, hey, we need a place to talk about algorithmic and experimental stuff. And I was one of the first people to join. I was actually member number 17. And so this guy, Matt Gear, decided on Facebook that it was time he made something for... It's called Open Music. It's kind of like a Max. It's just a bit more math oriented. It's pretty cool and algorithmic composition. And I think that's really interesting. And there's already several people in there. There's 60 some odd at last I checked. So that proves that there is a market for it. It might not be a big market. I might be one of the only 60 people in the world that cares about algorithmic music and experimental stuff. But I like it. I think it's cool. Yeah. But yeah, so I think it's interesting that there is something, and I just thought of that with that. And then also, there might be one other news tidbit. Vamp on something for a second. Not on the keyboard. You're bad, human.
Playing an octatonic scale there, which is a neat scale.
Okay.
A little old hat at this point. But...
there is thing.
Music of music.
Cool music of music, yeah. There's a reason why I'm looking this up, because it just came across my mind. So first of all, congratulations to our composers that participated last night.
And tonight we will have another concert, like Zach said earlier, unfortunately.
Unfortunately not stream. I'll have video archive up at some point. Jacob's piece went pretty well. It was a good show opener. I'm glad we definitely picked that to open the show, because there's something about opening a show with piano. It just invites people to listen. I don't know what it is. Just people tend to listen more if you open with piano, and that's why I like doing it. We had that. We had a percussion oboe piece, which went pretty well. We had one of our composers do an improv piece that basically is a giant musical game of telephone, which I think is really fun. Yeah. It's a really cool concept, especially while I'm sitting there like listening as I kind of just steer traffic. It's like, and they start to divert.
And we had a saxophone quartet that was a programmatic piece on the theme of gun violence in the United States today. And
I'm just saying I could write my gun piece. I just don't want to because I don't want to be fired.
There's a quite interesting euphonium solo written by one of our composers who also plays the euphonium. He plays it himself. And then Zach's piece, Number Theory, which was really fun to perform and to listen to. Would have been more fun if I had been in the full use of my vocal folds.
And I got some good feedback from our professors about how I can improve it for a next round. Kind of sit there and like have little number solos, so to speak. So like everyone cut and then just like 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, and then like cut out 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and then like cut just 3 and 4. Just things like that. So I think that could be a really cool way to do it in the future, and it's not against the rules of the piece. I think it'd be really cool. Okay, so the final thing, this is something I saw pop up this week. I wanted to go ahead and mention it. A composition colleague of mine, and of Jacob's, but Joshua Tomlinson, me and him have kind of written a lot of electronic music since we've been here. He's pretty much exclusively electronic music nearly, whereas I straddle the gap. But he recently was interviewed by Parma Recordings for his piece Mind and Machine Volume 2.
Well, it's his convergences.
That's what it is.
From
Sorry.
The compilation Mind and Machine Volume 2, which we talked about. I think it was actually about a month ago at this point.
Yeah.
He just released this album just came out on Revello Records, and it's a compilation of a lot of electric.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's really cool that we had this, because this is good for the university. It's good for the comp area in general, particularly the electronic music studies. And this isn't terribly uncommon for the electronic music scene at OU. We actually, all of our electronic composers have pretty good luck with getting our stuff played. And you'll join that club here soon.
I gotta finish my piece first.
Yeah, you gotta finish your piece. Then you can join the club. But yeah, and it's really neat. I like seeing this. I'm kind of growing a little, not really callous, just I'm not as impressed whenever I see, oh, another OU student got something successful with electronic music. I'm like, we're used to this at this point. Anyways, but it's really cool. I'm pretty happy that they did this, and I'm really happy that they chose to interview him, because they did not interview all of the composers. Yeah. So I think
we
that's
got our guy.
Yeah, and well, because that's typical. They'll interview like 1 or 2 composers that were on an album, and when there's 8, you wouldn't expect that one of them is one of your own, but it is, and that's pretty cool. Anyways,
job, Josh.
And then yeah, that's it for everything today. Yep. We're gonna call it a few minutes early because he's feeling a little ill, and if I have to talk for any more of the show, people are gonna hate me. So, anyways,
stop Zach from talking.
Yeah,
sign the petition.
Yeah. Anyways, so thank you so much for tuning in. This was Composer Talk, October 17th, 2018.
And we appreciate your hate mail.
We do.
Please send it. Yes.
And we look forward next time we meet, talking about all the stuff that will likely break this afternoon or tomorrow morning, as it always does.
Yep.
You've noticed that, haven't you? Like all the big news breaks Wednesday night and Thursday morning.
I always see stuff like after we get done.
Wait. I'm curious. I'm just gonna look at my email and hope for like a random. Oh, nope.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, there's something from Anthony, but I'm interested. Okay, cool. Nothing. Sweet.
Cool.
We're clear as of 1:53 p.m.
We're done.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye. Do 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 do.